My mentor stole my invention right before my big pitch. Imagine pouring your life into an invention, a breakthrough that could change everything. Now, picture standing on the brink of your biggest pitch, only to discover it's all been stolen, not by a rival, but by the one person you trusted most. What would you do when your dream becomes a nightmare, and the clock is ticking? I'm Sophia Martinez, and 48 hours before I was supposed to pitch my invention to the biggest venture capital firm in Silicon Valley, I discovered that my mentor had filed a patent for my technology under his own name. The invention was called BioSense, a revolutionary wearable biosensor that could detect early signs of heart attacks, strokes, and other cardiac events up to 6 hours before they happened. It used a combination of advanced algorithms, machine learning, and microsensor technology that I'd spent 3 years developing. 3 years of 16-hour days, maxed-out credit cards, and a tiny apartment in San Jose that I could barely afford. This wasn't just an invention. It was my entire life's work, my ticket out of poverty, my chance to save lives the way I wished someone could have saved my father's. My father, Miguel Martinez, died of a sudden heart attack when I was 19. He was only 47, seemingly healthy, coaching my little brother's soccer team one moment and gone the next. The doctors said if they'd caught it earlier, if there had been any warning signs, they could have saved him. That moment shattered my world and gave me a purpose. I would create something that would give people the warning my father never got. Dr. Richard Caldwell had been my mentor since my second year of grad school at Stanford. He was a legend in biomedical engineering, with dozens of patents, 3 successful startups, and connections throughout Silicon Valley. When I approached him with my early research on predictive biosensors, he'd been enthusiastic, offering to advise me, open doors, introduce me to investors. He became like a father figure, filling the void my dad had left behind. Sophia, you have something special here, he'd told me countless times. But you need guidance, connections, someone who knows how to navigate this world. Let me help you. And I'd trusted him completely. I'd shown him every iteration of my design, every breakthrough, every failure. He'd been there for all of it, offering advice, making introductions, helping me refine my pitch. When he arranged for me to present to Horizon Ventures, a top-tier VC firm known for making billion-dollar bets on healthcare technology, I thought it was the moment everything would finally pay off. The pitch was scheduled for Friday at 10 in the morning. On Wednesday evening, I was doing final preparation in my apartment, running through my slides for the 100th time, when my phone rang. It was my friend Maya Chen, a patent attorney I'd met at a startup networking event. Sophia, I need you to sit down, Maya said, her voice tight with urgency. My heart started racing. What's wrong? I was doing routine patent searches for a client today, and I came across something. Sophia, there's a patent application filed 3 weeks ago for technology that sounds exactly like BioSense. The same predictive algorithms, the same sensor array configuration, the same machine learning approach. I felt cold all over. That's impossible. Who filed it? There was a pause that felt like an eternity. Dr. Richard Caldwell. The room seemed to tilt. I grabbed the edge of my desk to steady myself. No, that can't be right. Richard wouldn't. I'm sending you the patent application now, Maya interrupted. Look at it and call me back. The PDF arrived moments later. I opened it with shaking hands, and there it was, page after page describing my invention in technical detail. The sensor array I'd designed, the algorithm architecture I'd developed, the machine learning model I'd trained on thousands of hours of cardiac data. All of it attributed to Dr. Richard Caldwell as the sole inventor. But it was worse than that. As I read through the application, I realized he'd included refinements and improvements that I'd only shared with him in the past month. Features that existed nowhere except in my lab notebooks and the prototype sitting on my desk. This wasn't parallel invention or coincidence. This was theft, calculated and deliberate. I called Maya back, my voice barely steady. He stole it. He stole everything. I know, Maya said. Sophia, you need to act fast. If his patent is granted, you'll have nothing. Even if you can prove you invented it first, fighting an issued patent takes years and hundreds of thousands of dollars. My pitch is in 2 days, I said. I was going to use that meeting to secure funding to file my own patent. Then we have 48 hours to figure out what to do, Maya said. Come to my office first thing tomorrow morning. Bring everything, notebooks, emails, prototypes, anything that proves you developed this technology. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on my apartment floor, surrounded by 3 years of research, trying to understand how this had happened. Richard had always been so supportive, so encouraging. He'd celebrated my breakthroughs with me, consoled me through my setbacks. How could someone who seemed to care so much betray me so completely? At 3 in the morning, my phone buzzed. A text from Dr. Caldwell. Sophia, just wanted to wish you luck for Friday's pitch. You're going to do great. I'm proud of you. I stared at the message, rage building in my chest. He was still pretending, still playing the supportive mentor, while he'd already stolen everything. I wanted to call him, to scream at him, to demand answers. But some instinct told me to wait, to be strategic. If he didn't know that I knew, maybe that gave me an advantage. At 8 in the morning, I was in Maya's office, a cramped space in a shared workspace in Mountain View. Maya looked like she hadn't slept either, her desk covered with printouts and legal pads covered in notes. Okay, here's where we are, Maya said, pushing her glasses up her nose. The good news is that Caldwell's patent is still in application phase. It hasn't been granted yet, which means we have time to challenge it. The bad news is that challenging it requires proving prior invention, and that's complicated. I have notebooks, I said, pulling out 3 years of detailed research journals. I have dated entries, sketches, calculations. I have emails where I share my progress with Richard. I have the prototype. Maya nodded, flipping through my notebooks. This is good. This helps. But here's the problem. In patent law, it's not just about who invented first. It's about who filed first. The America Invents Act changed the system to first to file rather than first to invent. That means even if you can prove you invented BioSense, Caldwell filed the patent application before you, so he has the legal advantage. That's insane, I said. He stole my work, and he has the advantage? I know it feels unfair, but that's the system. However, there are exceptions. If we can prove that Caldwell derived the invention from you, that he didn't invent it independently but stole your work, we can challenge the patent under Section 102A(1). But proving derivation is difficult. We need to show that he had access to your confidential information and that he copied it. He had access to everything, I said. I trusted him completely. Every meeting, every email, every lab session, I shared it all with him. Maya leaned back in her chair. Did you have him sign any confidentiality agreements? Any documents that established the information you shared was proprietary? I shook my head, feeling sick. Numb. He was my mentor. I never thought I needed to protect myself from him. Okay, that's not ideal, but it's not fatal either. What about your pitch to Horizon Ventures on Friday? Does Caldwell know about it? He arranged it, I said. He made the introduction to the partners there. He said it was his way of helping me launch. Maya's eyes widened. Sophia, what if that's the plan? What if he's setting you up to pitch technology that he's already claimed as his own? The realization hit me like a physical blow. He'd let me go in there, present BioSense to the investors, and then what? Reveal that he owns the patent? Make me look like a fraud? Or worse, Maya said. He could pitch his version to them right after you. Take your presentation, your pitch, everything you've prepared, and use it to sell his patent. The investors would see him as the legitimate inventor and you as someone trying to steal credit. I felt like I was going to be sick. Why would he do this? He has money, reputation, success. Why steal from me? Maya's expression was grim. Because you created something revolutionary, Sophia. BioSense isn't just a good invention. It's a billion-dollar invention. Maybe bigger. And maybe Richard saw an opportunity to add one more massive success to his legacy. We spent the next 6 hours going through every piece of evidence I had. Maya photographed every page of my lab notebooks, documenting the dated entries that showed the development timeline. We pulled every email I'd exchanged with Richard, highlighting the ones where I'd shared technical details and breakthroughs. We examined the prototype, taking detailed photos and videos of its unique features. Here's what I recommend, Maya said finally. We file a provisional patent application today. Right now, it won't be as strong as a full utility patent, but it establishes a filing date and gives you some protection. Then we file a derivation proceeding with the patent office, challenging Caldwell's application. How long does that take? I asked. Months, possibly years. But it gives you legal standing. It shows that you're not just making accusations, but backing them up with evidence. And Friday's pitch? I asked. Do I still go? Do I tell Horizon Ventures what's happening? Maya thought for a moment. That's your call. But here's what I think. If you cancel, Caldwell might pitch to them anyway, and you lose your chance to tell your side of the story. If you go, you control the narrative. You can present your invention, show them your evidence, and let them decide who to believe. But if Richard shows up with a patent application, then you show up with 3 years of lab notebooks, a working prototype, and evidence of his theft, Maya interrupted. Sophia, venture capitalists aren't stupid. They know that patent disputes happen. What they care about is the technology and the team. If you can demonstrate that you're the real inventor and that you have the ability to bring this to market, they might back you anyway. I left Maya's office that afternoon with a plan but no certainty. We filed the provisional patent, burning through what little savings I had left for the filing fees and Maya's reduced rate. I spent Wednesday night preparing a modified version of my pitch, one that acknowledged the situation head-on rather than hiding from it. Thursday morning, I did something I'd been dreading. I called Dr. Caldwell. Sophia. He answered warmly. How are the preparations going? Ready for tomorrow? Actually, Richard, I was hoping we could meet today, I said, keeping my voice neutral. I have some questions about the pitch, and I'd value your input. Of course. Come by my office at Stanford around 2? I'll be there, I said, and hung up. Maya thought I was crazy for confronting him before the pitch. You're giving him a chance to prepare a defense, she'd argued. But I needed to look him in the eye. I needed to understand how someone I'd trusted so completely could betray me so thoroughly. Dr. Caldwell's office was exactly as I remembered it. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, framed patents on the walls, photos with famous entrepreneurs and Nobel laureates. He greeted me with his usual warm smile and a hug that I forced myself not to flinch away from. So, what can I help you with? He asked, settling into his leather chair. I sat across from him, my heart pounding. I found your patent application, Richard. His expression didn't change for a moment, and then something shifted in his eyes. The warmth drained away, replaced by something calculating. Ah, he said simply. I repeated, my voice rising. That's all you have to say? You stole my invention and filed a patent, and all you can say is, ah? He leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. Sophia, I understand you're upset, but you need to understand the reality of this industry. You're a talented researcher, but you're naive about how the business world works. Don't patronize me, I said. You stole my work. I refined your work, he corrected. You had a promising concept, but it was incomplete, unpolished. I took what you'd started and turned it into something that could actually be commercialized. Without my contributions, Biosense would be just another failed grad school project. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Your contributions? Richard, I showed you every iteration because you were my mentor. I trusted you, and you used that trust to steal everything. He smiled, but there was no kindness in it. Trust is a liability in this world, Sophia. I learned that lesson early in my career. You can be angry at me, but I'm teaching you something valuable. What about tomorrow? I asked. The pitch to Horizon Ventures. Oh, that's still happening, he said. In fact, I'm quite looking forward to it. You'll present your version of Biosense, and then I'll present mine. We'll see which one the investors prefer. I suspect they'll be more interested in backing someone with a proven track record and a secured patent than a broke grad student with a chip on her shoulder. The casual cruelty of it took my breath away. You planned this from the beginning, didn't you? The introduction to Horizon, the encouragement to pitch, it was all a setup. Not from the beginning, he admitted. I genuinely wanted to help you at first. But about 6 months ago, when you had that breakthrough with the machine learning model, I realized what you'd created. And I realized that someone with your background, your resources, could never fully capitalize on it. So I decided to do you a favor and take it off your hands. A favor? I stood up, shaking with rage. You destroyed my life's work. This was everything to me, and now it will be everything to me, he said, standing as well. Sophia, you're welcome to try to fight this in court. Challenge my patent, file complaints, tell your story to anyone who'll listen. But you don't have the money for a legal battle, and you don't have the reputation to go up against mine. By the time this is resolved, Biosense will be on the market under my name, and you'll be a footnote in the development story. He walked to the door and opened it, a clear dismissal. I'll see you tomorrow at Horizon. Try to make it a good presentation. After all, I'll be using some of your slides. I walked out of his office in a daze. Maya had been right. Confronting him had been a mistake. Now he knew I was aware of the theft, and he'd had time to prepare his counter-narrative. But at least I understood what I was up against. Not just theft, but calculated, remorseless theft, by someone who saw me as nothing more than a resource to be exploited. That night, I didn't sleep again. Instead, I completely rebuilt my pitch presentation. If Richard was going to try to discredit me, I needed to be 10 steps ahead. I pulled together every piece of evidence I had, dated photos of my prototype development, emails showing my technical breakthroughs, even video clips of early tests. I built a timeline showing exactly when I'd developed each component of BioSense, cross-referenced with the dates I'd shared that information with Richard. More importantly, I prepared myself emotionally. I couldn't go into that boardroom angry or defensive. I needed to be clear, confident, and compelling. I needed to tell my story in a way that made the investors understand not just the technology, but why it mattered. Friday morning arrived. I put on my one good suit, a charcoal gray ensemble I'd bought at a thrift store and had tailored to fit. I looked at myself in the mirror and saw my father looking back at me. Same dark eyes, same determined expression. I thought about what he would have said if he were still alive. Mija, you're stronger than you know. Don't let anyone take what's yours. The Horizon Ventures office was in a sleek high-rise in Palo Alto, all glass and steel and expensive modern art. The reception area alone probably cost more than I'd make in a decade. I checked in at the front desk, and the receptionist directed me to a conference room on the 20th floor. As I stepped out of the elevator, I saw him. Dr. Richard Caldwell, looking impeccable in a tailored navy suit, talking and laughing with two people I recognized from photos, Jennifer Yang and Marcus Rivera, the founding partners of Horizon Ventures. They looked comfortable together, like old friends. Richard saw me and smiled, his expression perfectly friendly for their benefit. Sophia, there you are. Jennifer, Marcus, this is Sophia Martinez, the brilliant young researcher I was telling you about. I shook their hands, noting the slight condescension in Jennifer's smile. To her, I probably looked exactly like what I was, a desperate, underfunded grad student way out of her depth. We're so glad you could join us, Jennifer said. Richard has told us wonderful things about your work together. Together. The word made my blood boil, but I kept my expression neutral. Thank you for the opportunity to present. We entered the conference room, where 3 other Horizon partners were waiting. Richard took a seat at the table like he belonged there, while I was directed to the front of the room where I'd be presenting. The power dynamic couldn't have been clearer. Jennifer Yang opened the meeting. We're here today to evaluate a potentially revolutionary medical technology. Richard, why don't you set the stage for us? I felt panic rising. He was going to present first, controlling the narrative before I even had a chance to speak. But then Richard surprised me. Actually, Jennifer, I think it would be better for Sophia to present the technology first. After all, she's been intimately involved in its development. The way he said intimately involved made it sound like I'd been a research assistant rather than the inventor. But I realized his strategy. Let me present the technology, establish its value, and then swoop in to claim it as his own. Fine, I said, connecting my laptop to the projector. Thank you all for your time today. What I'm about to show you could save millions of lives. I started my presentation, walking them through the problem. Sudden cardiac events that strike without warning, killing over 300,000 Americans every year. I showed them the market opportunity, a multi-billion-dollar space with no effective solutions. And then I showed them BioSense. The technology was elegant in its simplicity, but revolutionary in its execution. The wearable sensor continuously monitored dozens of biometric indicators: heart rate variability, blood oxygen levels, skin temperature, electrical activity, and more. But the real innovation was the machine learning algorithm that analyzed these data streams in real time, looking for subtle patterns that indicated an impending cardiac event. Current heart monitors can tell you when you're having a heart attack, I explained. BioSense can tell you 6 hours before it happens, giving you time to get to a hospital, take preventive medication, or even call for help. This isn't about responding to emergencies. It's about preventing them. I showed them the prototype, a sleek device the size of a large watch. I showed them test data from early trials I'd conducted, demonstrating accuracy rates above 90%. And I showed them the technical specifications that made it possible. The sensor array I'd designed, the algorithms I'd developed, the machine learning architecture I'd built from scratch. But then I did something Richard wasn't expecting. I showed them the timeline. This journey started 3 years ago, I said. pulling up a slide with dated photos. Here's my first prototype, built in my apartment kitchen using components I ordered online. This photo is dated June 2020. I walked them through my development process, showing dated lab notebook entries, emails to colleagues, even credit card receipts for component purchases. Every step of Biosense's evolution was documented and dated. I applied to Dr. Caldwell's lab at Stanford in September 2021, showing him my early research and asking for mentorship. He graciously agreed to advise me, and over the next year and a half, I continued to develop Biosense with his guidance. I could see Richard tensing in his seat, realizing where this was going. 3 weeks ago, I discovered that Dr. Caldwell had filed a patent application for technology that is substantially identical to Biosense. The application lists him as the sole inventor. The room went very quiet. Jennifer Yang's expression shifted from interested to wary. Now, Dr. Caldwell may tell you that he contributed significantly to this invention, that he refined my work or added crucial components. So I want to show you something. I pulled up a side-by-side comparison. Richard's patent application on one side, my lab notebooks on the other. For each claim in his patent, I showed the corresponding entry in my notebooks, often dated months or even years earlier. Here's the sensor array configuration he patented. Here's my sketch of the same configuration from March 2021. Here's the machine learning architecture in his application. Here's my description of the same architecture from November 2021. Here's the predictive algorithm he claims to have invented. Here's my code for that algorithm, with version control timestamps showing I developed it in February 2022. Marcus Rivera spoke for the first time, his voice careful. These are serious allegations, Miss Martinez. I know, I said, and I'm not making them lightly. 2 days ago, I filed a provisional patent for Biosense and initiated a derivation proceeding with the Patent Office, challenging Dr. Caldwell's application. My attorney has reviewed all of this evidence and believes we have a strong case. I looked directly at Richard. His face had gone pale, but he was trying to maintain his composure. I understand that Dr. Caldwell has a stellar reputation, I continued. I understand that I'm just a grad student with no track record and very little credibility compared to him. But the evidence speaks for itself. Biosense is my invention, developed over 3 years of intensive work. I came here today not just to pitch this technology, but to pitch myself as the person who can bring it to market. I clicked to my final slide. The question you have to ask yourselves is simple. Do you want to invest in stolen technology from someone who claims innovation, or authentic innovation from someone who actually created it? Because if you back Dr. Caldwell, you're backing a patent that I'm going to fight with everything I have. And when I win, and I will win, your investment will be worthless. I disconnected my laptop and sat down. The silence in the room was deafening. Jennifer Yang turned to Richard. Dr. Caldwell, I think you need to respond to these allegations. Richard stood, and I could see him shifting gears, moving into damage control mode. Of course. First, let me say that I'm disappointed by Sophia's accusations. She's clearly upset about our collaborative relationship ending, and I think that's clouding her judgment. Collaborative relationship? I interrupted. You were my mentor, not my collaborator. Sophia, please let me finish, Richard said smoothly. It's true that you did excellent work as a researcher in my lab. You had promising ideas and good technical skills. But the breakthrough that makes Biosense commercially viable, the machine learning architecture, the sensor fusion algorithms, the predictive modeling, those came from my expertise and my innovations. He walked to the front of the room, trying to reclaim control of the presentation space. Ms. Martinez is correct that she developed early prototypes, but what she created was crude, impractical, and wouldn't have passed FDA approval. I took her foundational work and transformed it into something that could actually save lives and generate returns for investors. Then why didn't you list her as a co-inventor? Marcus asked. If her work was so foundational? Richard hesitated for just a moment. Because in patent law, inventorship is determined by who contributed to the final patentable concept. Sophia's early work, while valuable, wasn't part of the final invention. That's a lie, I said, standing up. The final invention in your patent application is 90% identical to my prototype from 6 months ago. The prototype I showed you in a meeting on January 15th, which is documented in an email I sent you that same day, summarizing what we discussed. I pulled out my phone and read from the email. Richard, thank you for your feedback today on the latest Biosense iteration. As we discussed, I've implemented the sensor fusion algorithm that processes multiple biometric streams simultaneously, and the results are promising. The machine learning model is now achieving 92% accuracy in predicting cardiac events. I'll continue refining the code and keep you updated. Sent January 15, 2023, at 6:47 p.m. I looked up at the room. That email describes the exact technology Dr. Caldwell patented 2 months later. I'm happy to provide the full email chain to your attorneys. Jennifer and Marcus exchanged glances. I could see doubt creeping into their expressions as they looked at Richard. This is clearly going to require further investigation, Jennifer said carefully. Richard, you're a friend and someone we respect deeply. But these are serious allegations, and we need to understand the full situation before we can consider any investment. Richard's composure finally cracked. You're going to believe some nobody grad student over me? I've brought you 3 successful deals in the past 5 years. I've made Horizon millions. And you're going to throw that relationship away because this girl is upset that I didn't give her credit? The mask had slipped, and everyone in the room could see it. The charming mentor was gone, replaced by something uglier. Richard, Marcus said quietly, I think you should leave. Excuse me? This meeting is over. We'll be in touch after we've had time to review the situation with our legal team. Richard stared at Marcus for a long moment, then turned to me. The look in his eyes was pure venom. You just made the biggest mistake of your life, he said quietly. You could have taken a settlement, gotten something out of this. Now you're going to get nothing. I'd rather have nothing than let you steal my work, I replied. He stormed out, and the door closed behind him with a heavy thud. Jennifer Yang turned to me, her expression unreadable. Ms. Martinez, you've given us a lot to think about. We're going to need to review all of your evidence, consult with our attorneys, and understand the legal situation before we can make any decisions. I understand, I said. I have everything documented and ready to share. We'll be in touch, Marcus said. But I want you to know, what you did today took courage. Not many people would have the guts to challenge someone like Richard Caldwell. I left the Horizon Ventures office in a daze. I'd done it. I'd told my story, presented my evidence, and challenged my mentor in front of the investors. But I had no idea whether it had worked. Maya met me at a coffee shop near her office. Well? She asked as I collapsed into a chair. I don't know, I admitted. They listened. They seemed to believe me. But they also didn't commit to anything. And Richard looked ready to destroy me. He's scared, Maya said. That's good. Scared people make mistakes. Over the next week, nothing happened. No call from Horizon Ventures. No follow-up from Richard. Just silence. I went back to my apartment. Back to my part-time job waitressing at a restaurant near campus, trying to figure out what came next. Then, 8 days after the pitch, my phone rang. It was Jennifer Yang. Sophia, we need to talk. Can you come to our office this afternoon? My heart raced. Of course. And bring your attorney, Jennifer added. We'll want her there for the discussion. Maya cleared her schedule, and we drove to Palo Alto together. Whatever happens, she said, you did the right thing. You stood up for yourself. Back in the same conference room, we found Jennifer and Marcus waiting with their chief legal counsel, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia. On the table were stacks of documents. We've spent the past week investigating, Jennifer began. We've reviewed your lab notebooks, your emails, the patent applications, everything. We also spoke with several other researchers who worked with Dr. Caldwell over the years. My stomach tightened. And we found a pattern, Marcus said. You're not the first person Richard has done this to. 2 other researchers, both grad students he mentored, came forward after we started asking questions. One from 4 years ago, one from 7 years ago. In both cases, Richard filed patents for their work shortly after they completed their research under his guidance. I felt sick. Why didn't they fight it? They did, or tried to, Patricia said. But Richard settled with both of them quietly. NDAs, small cash payments, and their agreement to drop any legal challenges. He's been doing this for years, identifying promising researchers, gaining their trust, and then stealing their work once it reached commercial viability. So what now? Maya asked. Jennifer slid a document across the table. We're prepared to offer you a term sheet. $2 million in seed funding for Biosense, at a valuation of $8 million pre-money. That gives you the capital to file a complete patent application, build out your team, and develop Biosense to FDA approval stage. I stared at the document, not quite believing it. You're investing in me? Even with the patent dispute? We're investing because of the patent dispute, Marcus said. You proved that you're the real inventor, that you have the technical ability to bring this to market, and that you're willing to fight for what's yours. Those are exactly the qualities we look for in founders. What about Dr. Caldwell? I asked. Richard is no longer welcome at Horizon Ventures, Jennifer said flatly. We've terminated our relationship with him, and we're encouraging the other researchers he stole from to come forward and fight their cases. It's time someone held him accountable. Maya squeezed my hand under the table as I picked up the pen to sign the term sheet. 3 years of work, weeks of despair, and one moment of courage had led to this. But the story wasn't over. The patent dispute with Richard took another year to resolve. He fought viciously, hiring expensive lawyers and trying to drag out the proceedings. But the evidence was overwhelming, and when the other researchers joined the case, providing proof of his pattern of theft, his position became untenable. In the end, Richard's patent application was rejected, and he was forced to return the rights to BioSense to me. The patent office also flagged his previous patents for review, and several were found to have been derived from other researchers' work. His reputation, built over decades, crumbled in months. The Stanford investigation resulted in his termination. The medical device companies that had paid him consulting fees sued him for fraud, and the IRS started looking into whether he'd properly reported income from technologies he'd stolen. Richard Caldwell, the legendary mentor and innovator, was exposed as a fraud. I felt no satisfaction in his downfall. Part of me still remembered the man who'd encouraged me in those early days, who'd seemed to genuinely care about my success. But I also understood that person had never really existed. The encouragement was just another tool of manipulation, a way to gain my trust so he could exploit it later. With the Horizon Ventures funding, I hired a small team, 2 engineers, a data scientist, and a regulatory specialist who could navigate the FDA approval process. We moved out of my apartment and into real lab space. We refined the BioSense prototype, conducted larger trials, and built relationships with hospitals and research centers. 2 years after that pitch meeting, BioSense received FDA approval. 6 months later, we launched our first commercial product. The response was overwhelming. Patients loved it. Doctors loved it. Insurance companies loved it because it reduced their costs for cardiac emergencies. We started getting acquisition offers within months of launch. Major medical device companies wanted to buy us, integrate BioSense into their product lines. The offers kept climbing. 10 million, 50 million, 100 million. But I kept saying no. This wasn't about the money anymore. It was about the mission, about saving lives the way I wished someone could have saved my father's. Every email from a user telling me that BioSense had warned them about a heart attack they didn't know was coming, giving them time to get help, made every struggle worthwhile. 3 years after launch, we'd saved over 200 documented lives. 200 people who would have died without warning but instead got to live because of technology I'd created. I thought about my father often during this time, about how different things might have been if BioSense had existed when he collapsed on that soccer field, about how his death had given me a purpose that became my life's work. In a strange way, he was still guiding me, still teaching me to fight for what mattered. One morning, I got an unexpected email. It was from Emma Caldwell, Richard's daughter. She was starting college, planning to study biomedical engineering. She wrote, "I know my father hurt you terribly. I know what he did was wrong. But I wanted you to know that I've been following BioSense's development, and I'm inspired by what you've created. My father taught me to be ambitious, but you taught me to be ethical. Thank you for that lesson." I wrote back immediately, thanking her and offering to talk if she ever wanted advice or mentorship. I would not become what her father had been. I would not use my position to exploit others. I would be the mentor I'd wished I'd had. 5 years after that disastrous pitch meeting, I stood on the stage at a medical technology conference, accepting an award for innovation. In the audience were my team, my investors, Maya, who'd become both my general counsel and my friend, and my mother, who'd flown in from San Diego. But I also saw faces I didn't recognize: grad students, young inventors, people who reminded me of who I'd been 5 years ago. What do you think? If this resonated with you, hit the subscribe button,